Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this one I'll take a look at the striking of Gane versus Junior Dos Santos in their latest fight. I'm going to do a little bit more of an in-depth analysis, and starting with round 1. I'm going to do round 2 over on my Patreon, and I will talk a little bit in the next podcast episode on the defense of Gane. But for now, let's take a look at his striking that he showed in that first round. So there's a bunch of things that we could cover, but I'm going to stick to 7 points. So the first one, he's very light on his feet. Now what you'll see is that when you compare their footwork, you'll see that Gane is actually quite light on his feet. You can see that he's bouncing on the balls of his feet here. And in contrast, you'll see that Junior is a lot more flat-footed. So again, just compare the contrast between both guys here, a little bit of a feint from Gane, and notice how Junior is, by comparison, a lot more flat-footed and a little bit more stiff, let's call it that, when you compare it to how Gane moves. Now, this is quite common for heavyweights to be pretty flat-footed, so it's fairly uncommon to see a guy like Gane move so lightly on the balls of his feet. And that's one of the main reasons that he can strike the way he does. He's got this bounce in his legs, he's light on his feet, he takes a lot of short steps. You'll see that even when he bounces, and just let's take a look at this. Okay, gonna take a little bit of a step forward, and then he's gonna bounce in place. He can bounce a little bit forward and so on. So these are a lot of small adjustments in the footwork, as opposed to what you see a lot of guys do a lot of big steps forward and lunging into their techniques, as opposed to what Gane's doing here. So this is the basics, a good stance, solid footwork, and being light on your feet. There's absolutely zero reason why a heavyweight cannot do that. Look at all the other combat sports, you'll see plenty of heavyweights that are light on their feet. So there's zero reason why in MMA that should be impossible. Now I know, there's takedowns, there's the ground. That's besides the point. It's not about that you have to be bouncing like a stupid rabbit all over the place. What you have to do is be able to be light on your feet. Which, in this case, Gane, he can do it. A lot of guys can't. So that's the first thing that I wanted to mention, this lightness on his feet. Now the second thing is constant motion. And throughout this video here, I will show you different examples of what I mean, but by far these are not the only examples. So with constant motion, what you'll see happen is that he is going to not just stand right in front of Junior and duke it out in the first round. A little bit different in the second round, but I'll talk about that over on Patreon. But he is not just going to square up and then trade punches and take a lot of risks. So you'll see he's moving here towards his left, and then he's going to backpedal and move over to the right and just get out of there. So you see he's a little bit over to the left. He sees that Junior is setting himself up to do something. And here, and at that point, you'll see that he starts backing up. You see the replacement step here, left foot goes back, he pushes off to the side, and his right foot scoots over, and he's getting out of range and off angle in relation to Junior. So let's see that one more time. You just watch the footwork. So he's standing face to face, he's squared off, he doesn't like what he sees, and he starts moving around immediately, and he gets off angle. And notice how Junior now has to follow him and readjust as Cyril is just taking his time and stepping away and stepping back into his fighting stance. Now this whole thing here only took like a second or two, but he basically gets back, gets out of range, repositions himself, and then is ready to go again. So that's what I mean with constant motion. He doesn't plant, he just doesn't stay there, and doesn't only fight in the blitzes that we see a lot of the heavyweights do. Just take a big step forward and start swinging. Yeah, nothing wrong with that, but it's very limited. This is like basic striking in any other combat sport. So it's nice to see a heavyweight do it a little bit differently, the way we see Gane do it here. So that's what I wanted to say about constant motion. But there's another point that is very particular to the way Gane fought in the first round. That's his fluidity. And in particular, he had no set point. Now, fluidity means that you can flow from one movement into the next, regardless of what that is. It can be that it's footwork followed by some sort of clinch, takedown, whatever. It can be footwork followed by a punch. It can be a punch followed by a kick. It doesn't matter. He flows into his movements. He's not rigid. So let's take a look at how that translates into footwork, going into striking. So you'll see that he's going to go over here, and it looks like he's circling away, and you can see Junior is taking a look at what he's doing here and trying to get something off. It wasn't really working out well for Junior up to that point. So what you'll see is Gane is going to circle out to the inside and then suddenly scoot forward. Now the way he does that is interesting. It's not just about the tactic, it's the way he does that. Look at the footwork. So you can clearly see that, okay, the guy's stepping off over to the side, and it looks like he's just going to idly just relax into his stance, and suddenly he flows into his attack, into that leg kick. So let's watch that one more time. So it's about the way that he's going to go about it. He's going to very relaxed, very fluid, step off to the side, and he's totally chill. And you think that he's just going to stay there, and all of a sudden, here's the point. He's going to bounce off that left foot here and then accelerate forward into the strike. So in the meantime, look what Junior's doing. Junior's following along. Junior's just idly following along and setting himself up to almost get tagged real good there. So watch both Junior and Cyril, the way that they go about it. Junior's advancing, following, trying to get a beat on his opponent. And here we have the left foot stomps down. Boom, here, and it flows into the attack, and Junior is unable to get out of range for that kick, and he eats it. So this kind of fluidity is, again, pretty uncommon in heavyweight, so I'm very happy once again to see it here. You guys have to understand that I've been training for 35 years. I saw the rise of kickboxing with leg kicks. I saw the rise of Muay Thai and so on. So the standard that I have for striking is different from what you see even today in MMA. Now, it's a far cry from the Tank Abbott days, from the early UFCs, for those of you who are old enough to remember that. But we're still, in many cases, seeing some striking from professional MMA fighters that is pretty bad. There's no other way to say it. It's just sometimes just pretty bad. Again, it's gotten a lot better from even 10 years ago, but guys, I mean, come on. And the worst category in that regard is the heavyweights. And like I said before, look at who's in the heavyweight top 10. You're not going to convince me that those are the top level strikers in the UFC. I mean, just nonsense. Right. So that was a point about the fluid motion. And now no set point means that this is something that the late Joe Louis explained once, or at least I got it from him. So again, I'm old. So what a lot of fighters need is they need to be in a certain positions and they set themselves. So kind of like the way that Junior is here. So you can see that he's got his weight centered in the middle. He's got, I'm assuming both arms are relatively up. He's got his spine is relatively straight, and he's looking at his opponent, and he's in a poised position, ready to do whatever he wants to attack, right? So he's in a sort of on guard position, of fighting stance, and ready to go. He's braced, he's balanced. A lot of people call this a reset. Onset position is a little bit different in my opinion, but the reset is the act of getting to that set point, so to speak, or to your fighting stance, or to the position where you have an overview and you can act again. Whereas set point is the exact moment that you do that. So the exact moment that, for instance, Junior here puts his foot down and balances himself and is ready to go, that is what I would call set point. Now, when you look at what Gane does here, he is just walking over, right? From this position here, if you look at his stance, just look at the way he's positioned here, he's not in a good position to strike at all. He's not really in a fighting stance. At the same time, his direction, his momentum is going the wrong way. Junior's over here and he's walking over there. So it doesn't look like he's in any sort of position to attack. But from here, instead of assuming a fighting stance like you see Junior do here, he's going to bounce off his left foot immediately into the attack. So that's what I mean with no set point. He doesn't need to get into a stance first. He can just transform the footwork into the attack. And that was the whole point of this section. So that's pretty difficult to do. That's advanced level striking. A lot of people have a few tricks to do that kind of thing. Very few fighters can do this constantly in pretty much everything they do. And that's what you saw Gane do here during the fight, is that he would flow into movements constantly. All right, moving on to the next one, kicking combinations. Now, kicking combinations didn't do a whole bunch of them, but I wanted to point this out because it shows the dexterity he has with his kicking techniques, and that is also pretty unique when it comes to the heavyweights. We're all used to seeing the lighter weight categories have really good kicking techniques, but it's very rare to see a guy as big as Gane to do exactly this. So he's going to lightly bounce off his feet again, right, into that push kick here. And it misses, right? Or, well, it slightly brushes the chest of Dos Santos, so it's not really landing well. But he knows that if he can put that foot down and stay in balance, he can immediately fire that left kick. Well, how does he know? Because it's diligent practice. I've seen Gane train and spar with Francis Ngannou, by the way. Over in I think it was in Paris that they were training. The guy's good. He knows his techniques, and this is one of the examples. By the way, this is one of the drills that I do to teach kicking dexterity. Is where you will throw the push kick, followed up by a roundhouse kick, and then follow it up by another push kick, or you switch between that and the outside stomp kick. So there's a bunch of drills that you can do to get this kind of dexterity, but that's for another time. Point is that he knows that when he puts that foot down, he's not off balance. Notice how he's going to recover his balance, and from here, he's in balance the moment his foot touches the floor, right? What a lot of guys do is, instead of maintaining their balance, they will be leaning backwards to get maximum range and power in that push kick, and then fall forward, lever themselves forward, and their spine and their head and their whole upper body is launched towards the opponent as their foot drops and falls heavy on the floor. This is not what's going on here. What Gane does is, you can see that he first of all retracts his leg. So you see that there's a bent knee here. He bends the knee before he puts it down, and that allows him to maintain his momentum under control. So he can choose to, from here, plant and immediately hop into the leg kick, right? So I want you to watch the right foot here and see how, as he puts it down, he knows that it's slightly out of reach, and then he's going to hop slightly forward. Here, you see the hop here with the right foot, okay, to still land that kick. Now, it's not a perfect leg kick, but that's besides the point. He has the dexterity to not only combine kicking techniques fluidly, but also adjust on the fly. And that's what that little hop was all about. So that is a very difficult skill to attain. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of training, right? So what else was he doing that was interesting? Well, there's a bunch of stuff, but we're going to get to the next part, and that is speed and recovery. Now, what I mean with that is that he doesn't overly commit. A lot of heavyweights, they plant and they throw bombs. But the thing is that it's not necessary as a heavyweight, because they're heavy enough, they've got so much mass and with a little bit of movement, momentum going, that even a fast technique can do a lot of damage. So there's really no reason why they have to throw these bombs constantly, which is what you see way too many heavyweights do. So what does Gane do differently? Well, he's going to focus on speed over power. He's going to try to land the shot as opposed to land it as hard as he possibly can. Because he knows that he can mess up his opponent with that if he lands a solid punch. And you saw it in the second round where he basically hurt Junior with a jab. But again, that's going on the Patreon. So point is that there's a bunch of advantages to that. The first thing he can do is he can attack, and then he can get out of there and recover, because he's not overly committed by throwing these heavy shots. So the focus on speed allows you to get out of there and recover from a technique, whether it lands or not, much more easily. At the same time, it's going to allow him to conserve his energy, and that allows him to keep up a high pace instead of gassing right away, which again, a lot of heavyweights have. So what we're going to see here is going to suddenly attack here with that jab. So a lot of speed coming in, tries to do something here, follow up, but he notices that, oh, no, Junior counters here with the big left hand. He's going to cover up and immediately back up and get out of there. So what Gane does is move in at speed. It's not working out well, so he immediately recovers. If he would be heavy on that lead foot and land heavy and do this big haymaker here and try to knock Junior's head off, it wouldn't have worked. So that's the point, is being light on the feet is one thing, but having that focus to use your speed effectively. See, the punch just comes shy of landing. So instead of insisting and following up with that right hand, which is what a lot of guys would do, and then you start trading, and then you're in the danger zone, what he does is immediately cover up here, and then he's going to back out and recover his fighting stance and reset, and he's good to go again. So again, if you're a heavyweight, I'm a heavyweight, so I know what I'm talking about on that front. If you focus on speed over power to begin with, you'll notice that you've got more than enough muscle mass and body weight to actually do a fair bit of damage by just landing a punch. Doesn't mean you have to throw these flippy floppy punches or lousy kicks, but if you've got a little bit of technique, just halfway decent, and then you try to be as fast as you possibly can, you're gonna see a lot of guys who look at you like, what the hell just happened, when you land that punch that they thought you were too slow to land on them, right? So moving on to the next part, this is number 6. We're gonna do 2 more, and that is he changes levels easily and consistently. Now, he's not just hitting targets at all levels with bunch techniques. Yes, he does that. So it's not just throwing a left punch and a right punch, or a hook punch, or uppercuts and so on. It's not just that he jabs to the body and then kicks to the face, or vice versa. That's not what I'm talking. That is part of it, but it's not the only thing that I'm talking about. In this case, he hits with the same weapon at all levels. So that left leg is going to land wherever he wants it to. He's going to step in with the leg kick, and it lands. Junior now knows this. He's going to step in with the body kick, it lands, and it landed repeatedly throughout the fight. And if you've ever been kicked by a big heavyweight like that, I mean, look at that hip rotation here. So he's got the step forward with the left leg. He's going to rotate his full hip here into it, and then he's going to try to sneak it in under the arm of Junior. I mean, that's a heavy power kick coming your way. So if you think you can easily catch those, good luck with that. Somebody commented about something else on one of my videos, and said that it's easy to catch body kicks. It is if you do them like crap. If you hit your body kicks correctly, it's really difficult. It's really hard. So if you've got a guy like Gane who's a really good kicker, he's got great striking, and he's doing these power body kicks on you, it's not just that you won't just be able to catch them, it's that they back you up. You can't just ignore them. It's like running into a wall, or a wall running into you rather, right? So anyway, back to the point here. So again, notice how Junior is going to have to hop back just to stay in balance. So that now he knows that body kick is also a dangerous weapon, right? And unfortunately for him, next thing that's going to come his way is a high kick. Again, look at the perfect technique here. You've got that foot that is well pivoted, the hip is all the way forward, you've got the right hand coming up, the left hand scissoring backwards, and the leg is pretty much fully extended towards the opponent. So now the point is here, Junior knows that as soon as he sees this here, right, this step forward, this little step forward that you see Gane do with his right leg in this case. So he takes that step forward, and then he sees the hip rotation or a little bit of a shoulder turn, depending on what he shows first. Okay, as soon as he sees this, Junior has no idea which level it will land at. It could be a leg kick, it could be a body kick, it could be a high kick. And he's learned now that all 3 levels are dangerous. They all hurt. So that is difficult to do. It's a skill that you have to really work at, being able to do that consistently in a fight, that you can just land whatever you want, at whatever time you want, with whatever technique. And in this case, I'm talking about the left roundhouse kick that Gane used, but obviously there's a lot more going on than that. Right? Okay, moving on to the next one, and that's the changes in speed and rhythm. Now, he does it in a variety of ways, but I'm just going to focus on this kicking exchange here because it's such a great example. So he's going to start off with that push kick at a slightly oblique angle. Okay, here. So that's the push kick that lands. And it's done pretty much at a regular speed, right? And you see that it's going to back up Junior a little bit. You see he's pushed backward a little bit off his feet, and that creates a little bit of space. And you're going to see that Gane is going to walk over here and just basically set himself up for whatever he wants to do next. So you can see that here he already has the side of his foot positioned correctly. So, and he's going to pick that foot up and do this light, low side kick. So he's not putting a lot of power in there, and he's not chambering it all the way up high with a fully bent knee. Look at that knee. It's slightly bent, and then he extends it. So it's more poking with that kick as opposed to really landing a power shot. So that's a little bit of a different speed to it. It's not that fast. But the next one is going to be a little bit more interesting. And you'll see here how he picks up that leg, hesitates, and then he extends and kicks again. So he's basically going from that first push kick that is pretty fast. Then he's got the first side kick to the leg, which is a little bit slower. And then we've got this second side kick to the leg, which is actually hesitating. So it's kind of like a stuttering attack. You think it's going to land. Nope. Yes. Nope. What is it? Well, and all of a sudden that leg shoots out. So it's the acceleration. So that is one aspect of it. Now notice the next part. So he's just shown Junior that, look dude, I'm slowing down. Take it easy. You can see what's coming next, right? So what's the next thing that Gane is going to do? He's going to speed up with a really fast leg kick here. So notice that he's using the half hip, which you can see here with the foot and the hip position. He's using half hip over full hip rotation because the half hip is faster. So he's speeding up all of a sudden with the kick, and it lands. And then the next thing he does, again, he backs up. Watch the next thing he does. He goes again for speed by throwing a really fast lead leg kick, little hop, and then he throws the quick lead leg kick. So we've got multiple kicking techniques, all pretty much going from fast to slow to even slower to hesitating to all of a sudden speeding up again. So this kind of changing in speed and rhythm makes it really difficult for Junior to counter him or to attack him, because a classical way of drawing out an attack is by slowing down. You slow down, you do technique a little bit slower than you normally do, or a lot slower, as was the case with that last lead side kick, and then you try to bait them into reacting. But you've got a real attack actually ready and waiting. Junior knows this, he's no idiot, so he tried to not fall for a bait, but in the meantime, he was eating a bunch of kicks. So moving on to one more, and there's the last one, and this is the most difficult to explain unless you've got a fair amount of experience. I call this zone interdiction because in the military you've got target interdiction, which is a lot more complex and a lot more all-encompassing than what I want to do. And then if I use target interdiction, all my ex-colleagues in the military will get very upset. So I'm not going to do that. I will talk about zone interdiction. So bear with me. This takes some explaining, right? So what do we have here? We've got a phase in which that they are pretty much facing each other. And I want you to basically draw this idea that there's more or less this space here, more or less, right? That's the space I want you to look at. This is the space that, in this case, a guy like Gane has in mind. Whether he does this consciously or not, it is what he's doing. A lot of fighters have these kind of tactics and skills without actually realizing it. But a zone interdiction is a very advanced concept that is hard to pull off unless you can do a bunch of other things, some of which I've mentioned in this video. Now he's going to step back. He's going to go backwards here. Oh, I didn't want that one. It's going to go back here and leave that space empty. So once again, we've got more or less here. Okay, this is the zone that he wants to make sure Junior doesn't get. I want you to watch the footwork Gane does first. He's going to take a first step back. Okay, big step back. That's an invitation for Junior to come forward. Watch Junior's footwork at the same time. Junior is inching closer. Now we're going to see that Gane is going to invite him once more. Another step back following. And right about at this point, okay, Junior is about to step into that empty space that I just draw on the screen. As soon as he gets there, as soon as he's about to occupy that space, what happens next? Boom. You've got the big high kick that knocks him off his feet and sends him all the way back. Notice the difference in distance where he's at right now. So this is a difficult concept to understand, but it basically means that what Gane is going to do is say like, right, this is the line you do not get to cross. This is the space here that you do not get to occupy, or this is the door you do not get to step through. If you try to step through it, I'm going to do something about it, right? So I'm gonna go forward. He's at the door. He's stepping through the door. Okay, step to the door. I'm gonna kick you back. I'm using a different concept by using stepping through the door or drawing the line. It's however you understand it best, but the point is that it doesn't matter if that kick lands or not. Gane doesn't really care. The only thing that is actually, if it lands, that's great, obviously. But when you use zone interdiction, the point is not necessarily landing the technique. The point is that he has just shown once again to Junior that you don't get to advance on me whenever you want. I control the distance, I control the pace. And using the high kick is an excellent way to do that, providing you have a lot of power in it, which is what Gane has. Again, you can see the impact is going to send Junior all the way back here. So what he does is that he's going to make sure that Junior is at the range he wants him to be in. If Junior ignores that, so if as Gane steps back, so we'll take a look again, if as Gane steps back, Junior just rushes in, he's already been getting familiar with those kicking techniques. So if he rushes in, then he's going to eat whatever Gane throws next. He's careful. That's great. And what Gane does is make sure that he doesn't forget that you don't get to go where you want. This is where I want you to be at long range. I'm going to kick you before you get any closer. And this is the idea of zone interdiction, is that you tell your opponent, so to speak, that you do not get to spend time in this space here between us. That is mine. I decide where you are. You don't get to choose. Which is easy to say, very, very difficult to pull off constantly. So zone interdiction is one of those advanced concepts that take quite a while to develop. What you need to know is you need to know the extreme reach of your techniques, meaning the full reach of that kick. Gane knows perfectly well how far he can reach an opponent with it. Then you have to have obviously sufficient power to get the results you want, but also you need to time it. He needs to time it just right so that as Junior steps in, watch that left foot comes forward, right? At the same time, Gane is going to step on his right foot and then launch that kick so it lands just the moment when Junior cannot get away from it. All right, guys, this is about half an hour, so that's a lot longer than I had anticipated, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth in my analysis and show you guys some of the things that Gane does well. Once again, he's not the perfect fighter. Obviously, there isn't one, but he's pretty damn good, and I really like his striking. I will go over now on Patreon, put the second video in this series, and that is the round 2, where I'm going to break down some other really interesting concepts that we saw Gane use in the fight with Dos Santos. I'm going to talk a little bit about his defense on the podcast, like I mentioned. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. As always, like, share, subscribe, do all those things. Head on over to the Patreon if you want to see some more stuff that is not available elsewhere. And if not, enjoy, and I will talk to you next time.